Alabama's F-150 Superstore. Welcome to The Drive with Wes Neighbors and Steve Moulton. Call into the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline, 256-576-4977.
That's how I roll. And I'm not going to drink and drive anymore.
That's 256-576-4977. Now, here's Wes and Steve. You're listening to The Drive with Wes Neighbors and Steve Moulton on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
If you're the kind of value shopper who waits until the end of the year because you know that's when the best deals are, it's here. And there's no first payment for 90 days. Hi, folks. Bobby White back again for Woody Anderson Ford's Make the Holiday Bright sales event. And we've got the best selection of new and certified pre-owned Fords we've had in years. Right now, get financing as low as 2.9% for up to 72 months on 23 F-150. America's best-selling truck for 47 years. 2.9 for 72 on F-150. And Woody Anderson Ford has over 100 F-150s to choose from. Great finance rates and no first payment for 90 days. We have financing as low as 0% for up to 60 months on 23 Explorer, Escape, and with Bronco Sport, you get an additional $1,500 bonus cash. Year in is the best time of year to buy, plus no payments for 90 days. With your good credit through Ford Motor Credit, this offer ends December 30th. Come make your holidays bright at Woody Anderson Ford. We hope to see you soon.
The new favorite place for delicious Mexican food is Coralejos Mexican Grill in Huntsville. Check out their reviews on Facebook and you'll see what people are raving about. Enjoy drink specials all day Monday through Thursday, like house margaritas for $3.99 and 12-ounce drafts for $2. Even vegan-friendly entrees on Monday starting at $5. Coralejos Mexican Grill, 1658 Old Monrovia Road in Huntsville. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram to stay updated on their specials.
When I chose a garage door company, I did my homework. I needed precision overhead garage door service. They have a 5-star Google rating. I checked their reviews and liked what their customers had to say. Precision Overhead Garage Door has lifetime warranty packages. Same-day service if I call before 2 p.m. If they can't make it the same day, my service call fee the next day is waived. They did a 25-point safety inspection on the door and operator. Now that's peace of mind. Residential, commercial, and gate services. Precision Overhead Garage Door Service. Call 256-400-4500.
This segment of The Drive is brought to you by Woody Anderson Ford, located online at woodyAndersonFord.com with 2 locations, Hughes Road in Madison and Jordan Lane in Huntsville.
I think we have everything fixed now. I am Drew DeArmond sitting in for Steve Moulton. We are here on this Wednesday edition of The Drive. I'm here with Wes Neighbors. We're going to have a couple of special guests for you. Mark McLeod's going to join us from the Gator Blitz about 5:30. We're going to talk some Florida Gators. They've had a lot of activity in the portal, recruiting. It's going to be a big year for Billy Napier. It all seems like they're pushing all their, or at least Billy is and his staff. They're pushing everything into the middle, all their chips, and he's going to have to win this year. He's had 2 mediocre years in a row. It's been tough for the Gators, really since Urban Meyer left town and Nick Saban ran him out of town on a rail. They've really had a hard time. Jim McElwain had 2 good seasons, I thought, and really 3 overall. He had 2 years where he made the SEC championship game. He just couldn't beat Nick Saban. They, of course, and they didn't tolerate him very long. And then Will Muschamp wasn't able to sustain it either. it's been tough for the Gators since Steve Spurrier and Urban Meyer left town. So going to be interesting for Billy Napier. This will be a very, very interesting season for him because if he doesn't get it done, I feel like they're going to move on. And I know Billy did a great job at Louisiana, I thought, and was patient.
But when he was there, he had the best players.
Yeah, he did.
In the league. And he's not going to have the best players in the league while he's at Florida. So
Yeah.
that's the big – and I've been saying that the whole time. And you look at their schedule next year. They open with Miami. They play UCF.
Yeah.
They play I think they play LSU, Georgia, and I'm pretty sure either Texas or Oklahoma or both. It's not going to be an easy year for Florida next year.
No, I mean, their schedule is going to continue to be very difficult, and, they showed flashes and just haven't been as consistent as they'd like to be. And certainly, it's going to be very interesting because he brought in Austin Armstrong, hired him away from Alabama, actually. He was only at Alabama for a few weeks. Their defense showed initial improvement, but then faded down the stretch. I still think it's a talent issue. I do think that with Mullen's recruiting or lack thereof, he had one really good year at Florida, but he didn't do a very good job of recruiting. And honestly, it's one of the biggest failures in Florida history because with Florida State being as screwed up as they were between Dirtneck and then Willie Taggart and then the beginning of Norvell's tenure. Now, Norvell's got it rolling now, but Florida State was really struggling. Miami still is, and Dan Mullen couldn't gain any traction at Florida. I mean, he should have been able to dominate that state and get all the good players. And you can cherry pick around, but if you do a good job of recruiting in the state of Florida, you're going to be really good. But Dan Mullen just did not like to recruit.
You're just not recruiting for Florida. I mean, against the Florida schools, you're recruiting against people all over the nation.
Like Alabama's had a pipeline into Miami,
into Fort Lauderdale. I mean, Jerry Jeudy and Calvin Ridley were teammates.
Yeah, in high school. Yeah. And that's the thing, and there was and then they got Amari Cooper out of Miami Northwestern. I mean, but there were still enough good players where one of those Florida schools could have taken hold.
Well, they all can take hold if they get the right people.
Yeah.
It's to get the right 25, developing, keeping them there, not letting them leave, not having them flunk out, not having them do all. I mean, there's a myriad of things that can happen, but you have to develop them too. Next year, Florida opens with Miami, then plays Samford, Texas A&M, UCF, Tennessee, Georgia, Ole Miss, Florida State, Kentucky, LSU, and Mississippi State.
Yeah.
And at Texas. So their schedule next year, how do you get a winning schedule out of that when you'll have Texas returning their quarterback, you'll have Florida State returning their quarterback, I think, right?
No,
he's
Jordan
coming back.
Jordan Travis is hurt. He's done.
Well, Ole Miss returns their quarterback. Georgia returns their quarterback.
Jackson Dart will be back.
Yeah. So it's just, to me, there's you look at the schedule and I don't see how they'll have a much better schedule much better record than they did than this year.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll be bowl eligible with this schedule more than likely. But there's a lot of landmines on this schedule.
Oh, there is, and that's really been a problem for Florida, being where they have matriculated. And this year really hurt them. They would have gone to a bowl game if they had just made one more play against Missouri on the road. They would have escaped out of there with a big win, and the season would have looked a little better for Billy. But he ended up not, making a bowl game. And then one of the more interesting moves he made, and we'll talk to Mark about that with the coaching staff, is he got rid of Corey Raymond, who is considered at one time the godfather of DB recruiting and development. He, of course, as you know, was when your son played at LSU and Connor was there. he was during his zenith, and Corey Raymond was a huge part of LSU. A lot of people were still angry that Brian Kelly didn't retain him and allowed Billy Napier to come in there and hire him away. A lot of LSU folks, and Matt Moscona among them, want him to rehire him. Now, the funny thing is, I know they're preparing for a bowl game, but Brian Kelly hasn't really – he said he's still evaluating. They haven't announced a lot of – I know they're trying to hire a defensive line coach. They've been trying to come after Bo Davis from what I hear, but I don't think Bo wants to go home to LSU. But he's still evaluating his staff because Matt House many people thought would be fired. He hasn't been yet. And then again, you've got their special teams. There was thoughts that he did make a change there after year one. But it'll be interesting to see, any kind of tweaks that he makes with this particular staff going into year three for Brian, because he's not on a hot seat or anything. He just produced the Heisman Trophy winner. In his 2 years, he's produced a Western Division championship, what could be a 10-win season, and a Heisman Trophy. But they've got to improve defensively. I mean, it was something we talked about yesterday. You were talking about how bad the linebacker play was. It was a lot of young guys. But
it's hard when you put freshmen in there.
Yeah.
And if you remember, the first of the year, they had 5 or 6 starters were on the team the year before, and that's hard to do.
Right.
No cohesiveness at all. And then so those guys didn't get it done, so they started playing freshmen, and some of the freshmen got banged up. They don't know how to play hurt. It's hard, it's hard enough to do it when you're 100%, and you don't know exactly what's coming.
Well, you bring up an interesting point there for the listeners, because you were an All-SEC player, and tell us the difference between playing hurt and playing injured.
Well, so when you're young and you don't know exactly what to do, I mean, some people doing different things against you, it's hard to adjust if you're hurt.
Yeah.
Because you're not playing 100%.
Right.
But if you know what's coming, like if after you're older, you know what's coming.
The schemes.
And you're more mature to handle pain.
Yeah.
And you learn, how to play hurt. You don't have to be dominant. You just have to block the guy. You choose when to be dominant. Like, if at the end of the game and it's the last play of the game, you're gonna do something, fire off and hit him right in the mouth, knock him back, even though it's a pass. Confuse him. It doesn't matter, right? He's not getting to the quarterback if you knock him back. So you can do all kind of different things when you have confidence in knowing what that guy's going to do. But when you're young, you don't know what he's going to do because you don't have the experience. And so it's hard to play. To me, it was harder to play hurt. And you're not mature. I mean, you're just not. And I played hurt when I was a freshman, pretty much the whole year. But it wasn't.
After you redshirted.
Yeah, I was redshirted, yeah, which I was hurt that year too. So
right.
I was, everybody's hurt by the end of the year. When they say that, they mean it. There's something wrong with everybody.
Yeah, I mean, football is, even though they've tried to change the rules up and everything and lighten practices and everything else, it is a grind. But now, look, think about it, Wes. When you guys were playing 11 games, 11-game regular season. There was no SEC championship game. Then you play in a bowl game. You play 12.
Yeah, but how many games were we playing during 3 days?
Oh, well, that's what I'm saying. But you practice longer.
Yeah, we practice longer.
Yeah.
There wasn't any 20-hour rule.
Yeah.
We literally had 36 spring practices, even though we were supposed to have 20.
See, that's why you always hated it, because you always talked about how you hated spring practice.
Oh, yeah. It's just because there was you never knew the rules changed. I mean, so we'd go indoors, we'd be full pads, but they wouldn't count because we were indoors. Right? It was a walkthrough.
Yeah. But you weren't walking.
No, And then Bill Condon threatened to turn us in. That was it for that. That was the last practice.
Wow.
When he said it, I was in shock. But it worked.
It worked. And everybody was glad of that, I'm sure. No doubt about it. Well, you can join us, 256-576-4977. Now that we've pressed the right buttons and I've got us on the air and we're all good, we got Brian behind the glass. Like we said, we got a couple of guests going to join us. We got Mark McLeod going to join us in about 15 minutes. He's going to talk some Gators. We'll talk about that. We're looking at a former Gator right here on the TV, Kadarius Toney, former Blunt Leopard. He was the one that lined up off sides and was rightly called for it, and it set off a bomb because, of course, Kansas City scored on the play. and they were angry that it was called back. But again, the Chiefs have kind of been their own worst enemy lately, and
their receivers can't catch. I mean, they're sitting there showing it right now.
Yeah, I mean, they've been their own worst enemy. They've still got Pat Mahomes. They've still got Andy Reid. They're still going to make the playoffs. I don't know that they've got the mix this year to win a Super Bowl. That's one of the hardest things to do, too, in the NFL is to stay on top because it's designed for parity. It's designed for guys to leave via free agency, and you have to continue to draft well. Look at Bill Belichick because they have not drafted well. There's even reports that he is going to be shown the door by Robert Kraft, which I just find stunning, honestly, because of all he's accomplished. But it just doesn't take long for something like that.
Man, he's made a lot of. He had a defensive coordinator as his offensive coordinator, and he has messed the whole team up when he did that.
Yeah, and I really think it hurt Mac Jones.
Well, no question. I mean, he's had three different. Yeah. He had a defensive coordinator, his offensive coordinator, and he's not the same. Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, for years and years they could do no wrong.
Right.
Everything they did was right, and lately, the last 2 years, that hadn't been the case. That's for sure.
Well, you had Matt Patricia and Joe Judge, and Joe Judge is really a special teams coach, and they're sitting there calling the play. And Joe Judge is the Alabama guy. He worked for Saban.
He played quarterback at Mississippi State.
Yeah,
Wesley worked with him.
Yeah.
I've been out with Joe Judge in Tuscaloosa many a time. So
yeah, and he almost got the Mississippi State job a few years ago before the Giants hired him.
I think he's a good guy. He's a good coach, but you're right. He came up through special teams. That's what.
Yeah, and I just think Mac needs a fresh start. I've kind of been campaigning so I don't have to give up my Falcon stuff. Maybe they'll trade for him and resurrect his career. And because I think the Falcons have a good young team, they just need a quarterback. And I think if Mac was there, with Arthur Smith calling the plays and everything, I think they could. And it wouldn't cost him a ton of draft capital because, again, everything, unless you're Tom Brady, and even with Tom Brady, it's kind of funny because you talk about things depreciating. Look at Tom Brady. He left the Patriots, and his only offers were really from Tampa Bay and maybe the Raiders, and he didn't have a ton of free agency just interest because of his age. But it's just really funny how the NFL works. And so, again, but I think Matt can still play. He just needs a fresh start. And if the 49ers had just drafted him instead of drafting for North Dakota State,
but I'm afraid
Trey Lance, I think that Mac would be fine.
Yeah, well, I believe he'd be on the bench because I believe that boy is really good.
Well, they might not have had to draft Purdy then.
Yeah, but I think they did okay with Purdy.
They certainly did. John Lynch, one of my favorite guys of all time. They saved themselves because they gave up a ton for Trey Lance, and he was a disaster. And then you get Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy in the last pick of the draft to save you.
Yeah, but it was three quarterbacks had to get hurt before he got to play, though.
Yeah.
And so it's totally by accident. But you look at I think Mac Jones needs to go somewhere and sit for a year.
Yeah,
and he can revamp his career.
What if he sat behind for Aaron Rodgers for a year with the Jets?
It doesn't matter who he sits behind. He just needs to get somebody that believes in him, like Tua did.
Yeah,
and the guy has he knows where to go the ball.
Yeah,
he needs to have rhythm. And listen, when you play on a bad team, the quarterback gets a lot of the blame.
Yeah.
But if people are dropping balls or people not going where they're supposed to be, which you don't know unless you're watching the game, where they can't protect you, you don't have a shot. Mm-hmm. I mean, to me, Baker Mayfield is a guy that Cleveland gave up on too early. And maybe they deserve. I mean, we were hearing stuff. He wasn't working hard.
Yeah.
He wasn't doing this, but a lot of that goes to leadership also. I mean, how's that?
Man, like the organization.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The leadership in the organization is really, really important. And in the NFL, most teams have really good players. It's putting the right guys in the right position, having the right locker room, and then having a guy that can make plays at quarterback. But you have to have playmakers around them because you can't throw it to people that won't catch the ball. Like you look at the difference, the playmakers that the quarterback at Kansas City has this year versus what he's had in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a huge difference, and he's not producing as much.
Yeah, they gave up on Tyreek Hill. And Tyreek is temperamental. the other day, I thought he helped cause the Miami Dolphins. It wasn't all his fault, but he certainly tweaked the ankle a little bit, didn't want to play, and he came in, gave him a few snaps, but wasn't as nearly as effective as usual. And Waddle got a little banged up, and before you know it, I mean, and they were without 3 starters on the offensive line, and
which is bad.
Yeah, that's really bad. And so the Dolphins just look totally different. And I know I've criticized him, but I got to give Will Levis credit. He started off looking awful, but by the end of the game, he looked really good, and he made some really unbelievable throws. I mean, if there's one thing the guy's got, it's arm talent. I mean, he's straight out of
you got to know where
Castle.
to go to with the ball, and winning the NFL game to me.
Yeah.
If you do that and come from behind, means a lot. But you got to keep improving because they're going to figure out what Will Levis does well, get them on film, plan for it, game plan for it, and you got to be able to do. You got to be more than a one-trick pony, and that's what gets most of these guys.
Well, yeah, because I remember Robert Griffin III and Vince Young. They had good first years, but then they were figured out.
Right.
And
well,
then,
I think Robert Griffin got hurt, though.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he hurt his knee.
Yeah.
Never was the same. But I think that was the case. Well, I've talked to his coach, so we know that that's the case. With George Henshaw just said he didn't ever develop, and people figured out what he did well, and that was it for him. You kind of see that happen with Josh Dobbs up in Minnesota.
He's got benched.
Yeah, he had 2 really good games, and then all of a sudden they figured him out and threw 6 interceptions, and you start losing confidence. People start losing confidence in you, and you know it's a fine line between winning and not winning in the NFL. Very fine, finer to me, in my opinion, than any other sport.
Yeah, it really is. It's tough. I mean, and they give up on you quick. Just like there was a lot of people wanting to give up on Tua after his first 2 years when Brian Flores didn't like him.
Well, they never want to get him a chance.
Yeah, they finally got him some skill guys and a couple of good running backs. I still love A-Chain. I still think he's gonna have a really good pro career. And of course they got Mostert, who had been with us several teams, including the 49ers, but he's an effective guy. Now, I will campaign in the offseason with Derrick Henry being a free agent that I wouldn't mind seeing him with the Miami Dolphins if you got Derrick Henry to run the football along with those skill people. Now we'll see what the King decides to do. But again, I mean, I don't think he'll go back to Tennessee because, again, you know how it is with running backs when they have a lot of tread on the tires. But I do think Derek is different. He's never really been seriously injured, and that's what's been amazing about him.
Well, now he had that toe thing.
A little bit of a toe, but he's been remarkably durable. And remember, at the start of his career, they didn't really know, just like at Alabama, how to use him right away. And he exploded as a junior at Alabama. He exploded about his 3rd year when Vrabel figured out, guess what, this guy's made of iron. I can give him the ball 25 times. I don't have to sit here and rotate somebody.
Yeah, the more they give it to him, the better he gets.
Exactly. So he's kind of an old school guy. But, Derek's playing out the last year of his contract. He might go back to the Titans on a 1-year deal, but I wouldn't think so. If I'm Derek, I've already got 9,000 yards. I'm nearing 80 touchdowns. I'm trying to win a Super Bowl. I'm trying to get to the Hall of Fame. You can kind of pick and choose your team. There's probably a good team out there that needs a running back. We all know running backs are devalued in the NFL, but he's a guy that would still, I think, retain some value. And you could, you could get him on maybe a 1 or 2 year deal for $8 million a year, and still have a lot of tread on the tires and still. Maybe be the missing piece. I know the Eagles have been mentioned as maybe a landing spot for him, and they've got so many other Alabama and Georgia guys. But selfishly, I'd like to see your dad's old franchise and Tua and the Dolphins win a championship. It's been so long, but I still think Tua can get a team there if you surround him with the right players. I think he's that talented. But again, you're gonna have he didn't play well the other night. Wasn't all his fault, but the guys around him have to play better, but still going to be really, really interesting to see how that goes. But I know we need to take a break here on this edition of The Drive. When we come back, Mark McLeod going to join us, and we're going to talk some Florida Gators. And he's a Miami Dolphins fan as well.
You're listening to The Drive with Wes Neighbors and Steve Moulton on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
If If you're the kind of value shopper who waits until the end of the year because you know that's when the best deals are, it's here. And there's no first payment for 90 days. Hi, folks. Bobby White back again for Woody Anderson Ford's Make the Holiday Bright sales event. And we've got the best selection of new and certified pre-owned Fords we've had in years. Right now, get financing as low as 2.9% for up to 72 months on 23 F-150. America's best-selling truck for 47 years. 2.9 for 72 on F-150. And Woody Anderson Ford has over 100 F-150s to choose from. Great finance rates and no first payment for 90 days. We have financing as low as 0% for up to 60 months on 23 Explorer, Escape, and with Bronco Sport, you get an additional $1,500 bonus cash. Year-end is the best time of year to buy, plus no payments for 90 days. With your good credit through Ford Motor Credit, this offer ends December 30th. Come make your holidays bright at Woody Anderson Ford. We hope to see you soon.
The new favorite place for delicious Mexican food is Coralejos Mexican Grill in Huntsville. Check out their reviews on Facebook and you'll see what people are raving about. Enjoy drink specials all day Monday through Thursday, like house margaritas for $3.99 and 12-ounce drafts for $2. Even vegan-friendly entrees on Monday starting at $5. Coralejos Mexican Grill, 1658 Old Monrovia Road in Huntsville. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram to stay updated on their specials.
When I chose a garage door company, I did my homework. I needed precision overhead garage door service. They have a 5-star Google rating. I checked their reviews and liked what their customers had to say. Precision Overhead Garage Door has lifetime warranty packages. Same-day service if I call before 2 p.m. If they can't make it the same day, my service call fee the next day is waived. They did a 25-point safety inspection on the door and operator. Now that's peace of mind. Residential, commercial, and gate services. Precision Overhead Garage Door Service. Call 256-400-4500.
Rambo Marine in Hazel Green is your one-stop shop for all things boating. Whether you are ready to surf with the newest Malibu wake boat or cruise on a Cobalt or Barletta pontoon, we have a boat ready for you and your family. Rambo Marine provides exceptional service second to none, so that you are ready to hit the water in no time. Stop by Rambo Marine today. We know boats.
At Mr. Sparky, we're America's on-time electrician. Flickering lights and hot switches can be annoying, but they can also signal a major problem, or worse, an electrical emergency. So play it safe and leave it to the experts at Mr. Sparky. Trust our team of professional, clean, and friendly electricians. We'll get it done right and get it done safely.
You don't have to put up with any malarkey. Call 888-8-SPARKY.
Independently owned and operated, licensed in the respective state or county.
No representation is made that the quality of the legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers.
This is Wes Neighbors sitting here with Stan McDonald. Stan, tell everybody why you're the best damn dirt lawyer in North Alabama.
Yes, Wes, at Jacob Title and the Stanton Law Firm. You know I'm a dirt lawyer, and a lot of our friends know that, which means we specialize in real estate. Now, if you own real estate or you're buying it or you're selling it, you need to do a closing, but a lot of times there's legal issues associated with that. We're a great group to talk to. My son, Lewis McDonald, heads our commercial closing division, and we approach your real estate needs very seriously. We seek to be the premier real estate closing company in North Alabama, and we do it in such a way it shows that we're experienced, we're for your success. We like to handle your real estate needs the same way Coach Dan Reeves used to say, never let them see you sweat. And that's going to be to your benefit, too, when you visit us at Jacob Title and the Stanton Law Firm. Our website online is jacobtitle.com.
This segment of The Drive is brought to you by Woody Anderson Ford, located online at woodyandersonford.com with 2 locations, Hughes Road in Madison and Jordan Lane in Huntsville.
As a friend, as a friend, as I know.
worldwide leader in sports, and let you guys.
On ESPN Plus.
Evan, Canty, and Michelle are unsportsmanlike.
We're no longer giving the benefit of the doubt to the New England Patriots. And that's probably the thing that makes you raise an eyebrow. That's the one that makes you gawk a little bit. It's just like, wow, we can no longer assign Bill Belichick as the best coach in the National Football League because we no longer have the confidence that he's going to figure out in time what's going on with this team to make a material difference.
Unsportsmanlike. Weekday mornings starting at 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ESPN2.
Exclusively on ESPN Plus, UFC 296, Saturday. A stacked night. Leon Edwards defends his welterweight title against Colby Covington. Alexandre Pantoja defends his flyweight title against Brandon Royval. And Patty the Batty Pimblett takes on Tony Ferguson in a lightweight bout.
Are you not entertained?
UFC 296, Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern. Fight on ESPNplus.com/PPV.
Here on the there we go. I think we're back on the drive. This is Drew DeArmond and Wes Neighbors here. We're going to try to go out to the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline, and we're going to be joined by Mark McLeod of the Gator Blitz. He's going to join us to talk a little bit of Florida. He's also a Miami Dolphins aficionado. I was trying to get that out before we went to break. I got a little tongue-tied, but yeah, he's a longtime fan of the Miami Dolphins as well. But we're going to go out to the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline and welcome Mark McLeod into the conversation. Mark, good evening to you.
Hey, good to be on with you guys. Good evening. Wes, long time, my friend, long time.
I know. How are you doing?
Hey, doing well. About as well as could be expected when you lose your last 5 games of the season and you don't make a bowl.
Yeah, that was a little frustrating. I know we texted during the season. Mark, I know last year there was a lot of frustration defensively. He brought in Austin Armstrong. They started out strong defensively. I still think a lot of what is wrong with Florida is roster-driven, and I really was just crestfallen for Gator Nation when they didn't pull out the Missouri game because at least they would have gone to a bowl. It would have made things feel better because they did everything but win that game. And I know I told you that what the Gators right now remind me of is when Mike Shula couldn't get over the hump at Alabama. Right now they find ways to lose games.
Yeah, I think you're right. They don't know how to win. They don't know how to finish. And that was one of the questions that I had for Billy during the spring back when he was doing the Gator speaking tour. And I asked him the first question, what gives you so much confidence going in that you're going to be better? He wasn't talking SEC titles or anything, but he was talking about the fact that he thought the team would be better. And then certainly I asked him, what do you need to do to finish? 8 games in 2022 where Florida did not finish games that they were in the fourth quarter. And this year it's 3, and maybe 4. You might be able to dial it up to 4, but they led Florida State 15-14 in the fourth quarter. They led Missouri. They had Arkansas, and they made mistake after mistake, some of the mistakes on the coaching sidelines, and let those games slip away.
So,
no doubt.
What I noticed is Florida would show up, and they'd play LSU, everybody. They play lights out the first, 15 plays on offense. And it didn't seem to me, after the other team adjusts, they never adjust after that.
Right, yeah, that was a tough thing. We noticed the same thing. Wes, we were looking at the scripted plays versus the non-scripted plays and seeing what Florida was doing, and we were kind of dumbfounded by some of the stuff going on. Now, granted, what Napier wants to do, he's kind of handcuffed with Graham Mertz. Terrific passing quarterback, but really, if Billy had his way, he would have an RPO guy, in there. And that's exactly what they recruited in DJ Lagway. But, Florida had issues with the offensive line. They couldn't keep their center, Kingsley Gaquin, healthy. Then their best offensive lineman, left tackle Austin Barber, they couldn't keep him healthy. He went out twice during this season. So things like that added up. And to Drew's point, they don't have depth. that's the problem at Florida. They need more elite players, and they certainly don't have depth, which is why, really, the past 2 years, but certainly this year, you saw them, at least in part, melt down in the fourth quarter because they simply they were tiring, and you could tell it. You could look out there on the field and see it. My buddy David Basil, when they came to the Arkansas game, he just looked at me in the fourth quarter and he said, "Oh boy," he goes, "You guys are getting a little gassed out there, Mark." And I said, "Yep, you can see it," and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, they certainly did. The Arkansas and the Missouri games were just Missouri had a good football team, and that was frustrating because Florida showed that they could. When you beat Tennessee the way they did in the Swamp, and then you should have beaten Missouri, this shows that if Florida had been a little more consistent, they probably could have been and made a run to be the second best team in the East behind Georgia. But they just weren't consistent enough. The depth you talked about had something to do with that. And then that Arkansas game, Arkansas and Mizzou, I thought kind of defined the season as being disappointing because those are two games, one being in the Swamp and then the other on the road, that Florida's got to have.
Mm-hmm. And, one of the things that bothered me was there's no special teams coordinator. He's running things the way Urban did. 2 offensive line coaches, no special teams coordinator. It's kind of run by committee. And, he has said repeatedly, in fact, he said it on the spring speaking tour as well, but so he's gone back a long time saying that here's the thing with our team. And because of the depth issues, because of some of the other things, the margin of error for our team, guys, is very slim.
Yeah.
Well, if that's the case, then you need a special teams coordinator because 6 times this season, and the 6th time was the Arkansas game, Florida had either not enough men on the field or too many men on the field on a special teams play, and it cost them big time. You had real mental discipline penalties with false starts inside the red zone that really hurt them. And again, the Arkansas game, it moved. Trace Mack was set up to kick a field goal. They have another false start, and they end up pushing it back, and the field goal was just short. But who knows? Maybe it could have made it closer in. So I just think he really needs a special teams coordinator. They obviously have some issues there. I don't like the way he manages timeouts. He seems to always leave himself with one timeout, if any, at the end of a half or the end of the game. And there's just been some coaching decisions on the sideline that we kind of look at and go, we don't really understand that.
So, both my children were under Billy at Louisiana Lafayette.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to a lot of games. And when they were 13-1, they were lucky to win 2 or 3 of those games because of just totally clock mismanagement. And I won't bore you with what all happened, but to me, that was my question, him going in. How would he he has that saying, scared money never made any money.
Right.
Well, to me, you got to play I don't believe in all these new percentages. You win. The stats say you kick and make them go 80, and if you do that it's hard for them to go 80. So
yeah,
I mean, you got to pick and choose your times to go for it, not to go for it, and Lane Kiffin has won some games doing that, but he's lost to me 2 for every one he's won. And this year he played it close to the vest and ended up winning all but 2 games. I think Billy be a lot better off just to play the percentages. You got to go for it sometimes, right? You got to know to go for it. But to me, he needs to play it closer to the vest, and he needs to teach these guys how to win football games and win close games. And you don't do it because listen, you're talking about taking a risk, this or that. Well, then all of a sudden you're a defensive end and you've got contained, but you're looking inside. You think, hey, I can get there. I can make a play. I can take a risk right here. And then all of a sudden they pitch sweep it. You're inside. There's nobody outside. And you didn't do your job. Well, you took a risk yourself and it didn't pay off. That stuff is contagious. And that's what costs football games that people don't see is when people are not doing their jobs.
You're right.
It's absolutely contagious.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And we've seen all of the above. You can tell that you've been around him in the program because that's precisely, Wes, that's precisely what's happening at Florida. And we see that a lot, clock mismanagement and just a lot of mental mistakes and a lot of things with the Florida defense, as Drew touched on earlier, talking about the defense. I mean, yeah, that's, early in the year, Florida was one of the better defenses out there.
Yes.
Now, granted, one of your opponents was McNeese, but one of your opponents was Tennessee. And then when they got the Kentucky game, Kentucky just clobbered them. I mean, they looked like they didn't even show up to play.
Right.
And, that's been another hump that he's had to overcome, is trying to get this team ready to play. Well, he had them ready to play against Missouri. He had them ready to play against Florida State. So that part, I think, has gotten better. But overall, there's still a lot of things, a lot of questions about Billy on the side.
Well, here's what happens. When you have a team that's used to opening up and then losing at the end, what happens when they do really bad in the first? They're not going to do any better at the end, right?
Right. Yeah.
So it's almost So I played at Alabama on one of the worst teams. I guess we had the first losing season. It was Coach Perkins' second year, and for many reasons, but we were ahead of every game but one at halftime. So we lost 5 games that we were ahead at halftime. Well, it's a whole different mindset on how to win, and you have to be able to run the ball when everybody in the stadium knows you're going to run the ball and get yardage. If you can't do that, you cannot win big games. One possession games, you can't win them, and that's what was happening. Well, we worked out that in the offseason. The next year we were 10-2-1 and lost 2 games by 2 points. The next year.
Wow.
So this stuff is fixable if you get the right people in, but you have to have the right mindset. If you never get the right mindset and play games close to the vest, most games are lost, they're not won, and don't lose the games. The coaches, these coaches think that they're there to win games. No, you're there not to lose them. The players win the games. You put your players in a position to win a game.
Right. And Wes, I think that was Florida's problem in year one under Billy. I thought going into that year, when he had finished with the signing class and the transfer portal, I thought, oh, good grief. There are a lot of guys here who I don't think, just based on what I've seen with the attitude of some of these cats, I don't think they're going to buy in. I don't think they're going to be on board. And it turns out, he said, during his spring speaking tour that, we had a few guys that we needed to, let them go their way because they weren't interested in doing it our way. So, I think that was a big problem. They didn't cut enough bait in that first year, and now they've cut a few more this year. So maybe he feels like he's gotten out because most everybody on the team right now, so many of these guys, vast majority are his guys. So, maybe that'll be a little bit easier, but they've got a ton of work to do if they're going to do anything in the transfer portal, and they have desperately really have to keep this signing class together, particularly getting DJ Lagway.
Yeah, I know he's the centerpiece.
Well, you look at their schedule next year. You might need to get some Miami Dolphins to transfer up.
That's true. It's brutal. It is absolutely brutal. You're going to play UCF. They're going to be ready to go against Florida. You got Florida State. You got Miami. So you've got the big 3 in the state of Florida, and then of course you got the SEC schedule. And good grief,
Texas, Georgia,
Texas,
LSU. There's not for the faint of heart, no question.
And I was wondering this earlier in the show, Mark, when we were previewing you coming on. This third year, the climate has changed so much with the portal, with NIL, with recruiting. Is this pushing all the chips in the middle of the table for Billy coming up in year 3?
I think so. Florida did him no favors in the transfer portal last year, with that debacle that the Gator Collective had with Jaden Rashada.
Yeah.
I mean, that was awful. That was horrible, guys. And that really soiled Florida's name. I know I talked to some high school coaches during the spring and summer, and got kind of their take on it. And yeah, there were some kids in their programs that were, making comments. I don't know about Florida, and you just can't have that. You can't have that, especially when you're a new guy trying to change the culture and change everything going on that was wrong in Gainesville. So I think that certainly hurt. Right now, again, losing your last 5 games and not going to a bowl game. You see what is being said on social media by Florida fans. And, if you're a college kid looking to transfer or a high school kid, it's tough. It's tough for you to pull that trigger and say Florida is the place I want to be. I think they're going to get better. So that's where Billy and his staff really have to try and lock down some quality people, because the 3 positions they really needed in the portal last year and they missed. And he told us this. Edge rusher, he needed someone to go along with Princely Umanmielen. He desperately needed a veteran safety that could come in and play right away. They didn't get that. They got TJ Moulton from Michigan State, but he wasn't the guy. He wasn't able to come in and win a starting position. And then they really needed an elite wide receiver with some length to help them out. And they missed in all 3 of those areas. And really, guys, they have the same needs this year. They really want to. They're going to need to add a couple pieces on the offensive line, I think. So it's going to be an interesting run up until January 2nd. But right now, as of now, there's really not a whole lot happening for Florida in the portal in terms of guys saying, "Yeah, I'm coming to Gainesville."
So what about when you as far as Florida's concerned and the NIL? What is the true story of what happened with that thing?
I don't know if I even know the true story. I mean, there's been so much out there. I mean, obviously, what we do know is the collective seemingly thought they were going to get help from another collective, a new collective, spearheaded by a big money booster who were going to help them get Rashada. And apparently the money they promised was extraordinary and was money that, by all accounts, there's no way Billy Napier or Scott Strickland would have agreed was a good thing to do. And apparently they pulled the trigger on it, said, yeah, we can do it, and then realized, no, we can't do it because we have obligations elsewhere. And when they told the young man, and his father said, that's it, we're done. And he was done with Florida. So, yeah, it was really embarrassing. And Gator Collective was, of course, dissolved. And now you have a couple other collectives out there. But a couple things run in. Some of the older boosters, some of the guys, they're not on board with some of this NIL stuff still. It's still uncomfortable for them. That's not something they want to do. So you're missing some pieces there. And then also there were a few people I know who said, I'm going to wait till they get it together and see what's going on, and then I'll begin to give and contribute. And I have to imagine, I don't know this for a fact, but I have to imagine there are a few people who said, I'm not going to contribute to this until we get he turns the program around, or we get a new guy in here to turn the program around and get it going in the right direction, a direction that I feel confident and comfortable with.
Well, my understanding, and I was approached by a lot of people to help start collectives, this or that, and I wouldn't have anything to do with it. My understanding is these collectives collect the money, and then they keep anywhere from 10 to 15% of what's put in them. So they're kind of self-dealing in a way. To me, they're going to have to do away with these. And you see these collectives folding left and right right now.
They've Mark's already talking about one folding in Florida, yeah.
So what I think's going to happen is this university is going to have to take control
the university themselves,
and do the NIL and establish either trust for these kids or programs and take the anytime there's a fee involved in collecting money, it becomes it attracts the underbelly of the world.
Mm-hmm.
When it's cash and it's not being taken care of, I guess the way you would think it should be taken care of, and to me, it has to be NIL has to be not managed by the university, but these kids protected from these guys out there that are trying to take advantage of them. I read somewhere where a guy, or was told of a guy, signed a contract to give away his NFL 20% or 25% of his NFL winning. So that just shows you what's out there. Just an example. And there has to be something done. And I'm not sure, because I'm not sure I understand all the moving parts. But NIL, to me, is if you are a good player or somebody wants you to represent for whatever reason, and you sell razors, right? And you want somebody to hawk your razors on the radio, TV, or whatever, and that's what NIL is supposed to be about. Represent and represent yourself in advertisements and stuff like that. And
we had a major issue down here. You probably remember it. You guys, Tank Black, a guy who was doing stuff, agent, and ended up getting. I think Fred Taylor was involved, of course, who was first round pick of the Jags, and then Javon Kerr, some other guys.
Right, there was,
and that was an ugly situation. And Florida, Florida actually passed legislation about agents, and really they went right after him. There were a lot of upset folks about that. So, that certainly happened in Gainesville 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah, I think he was in Atlanta in an office building, and Larry Roberts threatened him. They had Larry, who's gone now, was a guy I played with at Alabama, threatened to throw him out the window.
I got to hear that story.
No question. Well, Brian, Mark, we really have to. We're going to have to wrap it up here. But we appreciate you hanging with us. I know we had a couple of technical difficulties. We've worked through those, but we enjoy talking football with you. We could probably talk with you the entire 2 hours. But thank you for taking the time to join us, and let everybody know how to connect with you at the Gator Blitz.
Yeah, at McLeod Live, MCLEOD Live, of course, blitzsportsradio.com. And Drew, always good to be on with you, my friend. And Wes, it's great to catch up with you. I again, thoroughly enjoyed talking to you at SEC Media Days. And as an old Dolphin fan, of course, the neighbor's name means a lot to me.
Well, thank you. We had a blast. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. Okay, guys, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. We're going to go on a break. We're going to wrap up this first hour of talk of the drop.
You're listening to The Drive with Wes Neighbors and Steve Moulton on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
Ann Adams with Berkshire Hathaway Rise Real Estate is the one name to know if you're buying or selling real estate. With years of local experience, Ann Adams offers buyers in-depth knowledge of the local housing market and will narrow available properties down to those you'll be interested in so you can save time when shopping for your new home. If you're ready to sell, Ann offers a seamless process using accurate pricing and expert negotiation skills to make sure you get a fair price for your home. Call Ann Adams today at 256-337-2625 or log on bhhsriserealestate.com.
Not looking or feeling your best? No energy for the things you like to do? Ready to look and feel younger? Make your appointment at Advanced Life Clinic, one of the region's foremost destinations for patients interested in looking and feeling their best. Specializing in advanced laser treatments and weight loss, male and female rejuvenation to offset the effects of aging, and more. See how Advanced Life Clinic can help you enjoy your life again. Call 256-882-6555 or log on advancedlifeclinic.com.
With us today, Dr. Tracy Lowry of Best Vein Care of Huntsville.
When we evaluate a patient and they indeed have significant venous disease, most third-party payers, private insurance, Medicare, require us to treat every patient conservatively at least 90 days. Conservative treatment includes increasing ambulation, elevation of the legs, and the wearing of compression stockings. It's very common for folks to come see us in March or April wanting to have their veins fixed before they go into swimsuits starting in June. When we see someone in March or April, they're going to require at least 90 days of conservative treatment before we can even go to the insurance carrier to get permission to treat their veins. So if you think you have a venous problem, now is the time to come in and get a free screening so we can determine whether or not you need something evaluated. If you have a vein problem or you think you may have a vein problem, now's the time to contact us at bestveincarehuntsville.com.
The kitchen is the heart of any home.
It's where the family gathers. It's where kids discover old recipes and make them their own. Just starting out or just now getting started on the dream kitchen you've always wanted?
I'm Chris Haygood, and from all of us here at Bob Wallace Appliance to the home builders and the homeowners of the Huntsville area, a heartfelt thank you for buying local. We're in Huntsville, Florence, and Coleman, and online at bobwallaceappliance.com.
If you're the kind of value shopper who waits until the end of the year because you know that's when the best deals are, it's here. And there's no first payment for 90 days. Hi, folks. Bobby White back again for Woody Anderson Ford's Make the Holiday Bright sales event. And we've got the best selection of new and certified pre-owned Fords we've had in years. Right now, get financing as low as 2.9% for up to 72 months on 23 F-150. America's best-selling truck for 47 years. 2.9 for 72 on F-150. And Woody Anderson Ford has over 100 F-150s to choose from. Great finance rates and no first payment for 90 days. We have financing as low as 0% for up to 60 months on 23 Explorer, Escape, and with Bronco Sport, you get an additional $1,500 bonus cash. Year in is the best time of year to buy, plus no payments for 90 days. With your good credit through Ford Motor Credit, this offer ends December 30th. Come make your holidays bright at Woody Anderson Ford. We hope to see you soon.
Coming up on Wednesday is our annual Christmas party at Flow Supreme Air Sports, presented by Eagle Insulation and Masonry, plus Talent Heating and Air, with food provided by Bubby's Diner. So come on by and bring a toy as we collect toys for the Boys and Girls Club of North Alabama. So bring a toy and join in the fun at Flow on Wednesday. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas from 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
From the Fox 54 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Emily Owen. For this Wednesday, expect a mostly sunny sky. High temperatures will be a little warmer heading into the afternoon. It looks like we'll top out in the upper 50s. Heading into your Wednesday night, we'll start the night off mostly cloudy, gradually becoming mostly clear. Low temperatures expected to fall into the mid and upper 30s for the overnight. I'm Fox 54 meteorologist Emily Owen on your home for ESPN Radio 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
Are you tired of chasing a roofing contractor to show up on time or even show up at all? I'm Sam Fleming with Fleming Roofing and Restoration. Our motto at Fleming Roofing is we show up. Our goal at Fleming Roofing is to provide the reliable customer service that you deserve, and we have the resources to meet all of your roofing needs: residential, commercial, industrial, replacement, or repairs. We are manufacturer certified for roof coatings, single-ply membranes, and asphalt shingles. Whenever you need a roofing professional you can count on, call Fleming Roofing and Restoration. We are committed to finding the solution that meets your needs. We don't have quotas or heavy-handed sales tactics. Fleming Roofing. We have expert experience. We show up. Free estimates. Residential, commercial, industrial, replacement, or repair.
WZZN, Union Grove, Huntsville, Alabama. 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
This is SportsCenter.
I'm Nick DeLuca. Wednesday night NBA action in San Antonio. The Spurs have lost a franchise record 17 straight games after falling to the Rockets on Monday. Their 3-19 record, the worst start to a season in team history. Things don't get any easier tonight. They welcome in the Lakers. LA looking to bounce back from a tough loss in Dallas yesterday. LeBron and AD combining for 70. Just not enough against Luka. Lakers 3.5-point favorites on ESPN Bet. While the Suns will have their big three together for tonight. Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, all expected to be on the floor. KD missed the last 2 games with his sprained ankle, probable to play. Phoenix looking for a second straight win tonight. In the NFL, not the season the Patriots were looking for, eliminated from playoff contention at the earliest point in Bill Belichick's tenure in New England. Some reports saying the two sides will part ways after the season. ESPN NFL analyst Dominique Foxworth weighs in.
You can say, oh, well, the game is passing by. It doesn't seem like the game is passing by. It seems like there are other issues within the coaching staff and within the roster development. Right. So those are also issues that come with it. So do you think that his coaching ability outweighs all those other problems? I would have a hard time from moving on from somebody who won me 6 of the big ones.
In the NCAA, federal judge issuing a temporary restraining order allowing 2-time transfers to be eligible immediately for the time being, alleging the rules waiver process violated federal antitrust law. Hearing scheduled for the end of the month.
Hey, it's Michelle Smallman. Coming up Thursday, I'll tell you why Kevin Stefanski is the coach of the year, and it's not even close. It's Unsportsmanlike, 6 a.m. Eastern, right here on ESPN Radio, ESPN2, and ESPNU.
'97.7 ESPN The Zone. Welcome to The Drive with Wes Neighbors and Steve Moulton. Call into the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline, 256-576-4977.
That's how I roll. And I'm not going to drink and drive anymore.
That's 256-576-4977. Now, here's Wes and Steve.
Hour number 2. And we are back here for hour number 2 here on The Drive. We appreciate everybody for hanging with us. We had Mark McLeod on in the first hour to talk Florida Gators, and now we're going to go to a Hall of Famer, a gentleman that, as I was telling Wes before the show started, he knows more football than just about anyone I've ever listened to and had this pleasure of speaking with. And, of course, I've had the pleasure of speaking with him on this show when I've sat in with Wes and Steve on occasion. He does a great job now for sportsradio610.com. He has, of course, his daily podcast there, 3 podcasts, and his 5 columns. You can read John McClain and listen to him each and every week. And he's been kind enough to join us now and talk some NFL and college football on the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline. John, you are with Drew DeArmond and Wes Neighbors. How are you tonight, sir?
Guys, I'm doing great. I hope you're having a happy holidays and wish everybody a Merry Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know Wes is looking forward to speaking with you. I've got to start because the last time I spoke with you, the Houston Texans were 0-in and were about to hire D'Amico Ryans, and you spoke so highly of him because you covered him with the Houston Texans, and you even told him you kind of foreshadowed that you told him you thought he could become a head coach in the NFL. I certainly think they've overachieved in year one. What's been the thought process in Houston so far about year one under D'Amico?
They've way overachieved in year one. Everybody knew D'Amico was going to be a head coach. The story that I have told is the Texans last year, before preseason, Lovie Smith was the coach. It was his only season. And they played the 49ers. It was the first game Amazon had. And so it was a test drive for Amazon. There was a lot of media from around the country there. It was very exciting for a preseason game. So I went down on the field before the game and went over to the tunnel outside the 49ers locker room because so many of their staff, starting with Kyle Shanahan, used to be with the Texans under Gary Kubiak. They had Shanahan, D'Amico Ryans, Robert Saleh, Matt LaFleur, Mike McDaniel, a lot of head coaches, 2 college head coaches. Mike Sherman, who was also with the Packers, Troy Calhoun, who's been with the Air Force for 14 years. So it's a really talented staff, and a bunch of them were there. A lot of other people on that Kyle had with him from Houston. So when D'Amico came by, I shook hands with him, and I said, I want to be the first to congratulate you on your first NFL head coaching job. He said, what are you talking about? I said, well, after this season, you're going to be a head coach. And he just laughed. He goes, I'm worried about this game. And it was ironic that it turned out to be with the Texans. He had opportunities to go to all 5 teams that had openings last year. He turned down an interview with Carolina right off the bat, smart thing. And he had scheduled interviews with Houston, Denver, Indianapolis, and Arizona. And so he interviewed with the Broncos, and then they were playing, I think, Tampa in the playoffs, and then he interviewed with the Texans on Zoom. And he told his agent, Jimmy Sexton, to cancel the interviews with Arizona and Indy. And I think Jimmy said it was because he's preparing to play the game. But this was his dream job. His wife's from here. Their kids were here, born here. They were building their dream home here, even though he was coaching for the 49ers. During the pandemic, they started a home for wayward kids here. So it was just such a natural. And the people that interviewed him on the Zoom, they always interview people on a Zoom. If you like them, you bring them in for the next one. And so Nick Caserio, the GM, it was his choice. The McNair family would sign off on it, and they wanted D'Amico, but they weren't going to make Nick Caserio hire him, because that's not the way they operate. So he had the interview, and after it was over and D'Amico got off, Caserio turned to Janice, Hannah, and Cal McNair and said, "We've got to get him, and we can't let him leave." And all of them went, whew, because that's who they wanted to. Then they flew him in here. He never left. They signed him to a 6-year contract. And for the Texans to be 7-6, they've won 7 games the last 2 years. I picked them to win 6. And they've had so many injuries. They've had 3 left tackles, 3 left guards, 4 centers, and 3 right tackles. Only the right guard has been there for every game. So they've dealt with so many injuries. Now C.J. Stroud's out. He's going to be NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year. They got receivers out, but they play hard. They play smart. They don't always play well. But he has this team in this city, he and Stroud, have them so excited, even though they just got walloped by the Jets and Zach Wilson 30-6. It doesn't diminish people's enthusiasm for what he's accomplished and for what is still ahead of them. They're 1 game behind Jacksonville in the AFC South. They split with the Jaguars, and they are tied with Indy for second, and they play Indy in the last game of the season.
So what do you think has been the biggest thing as far as he's done to turn this team around, which everybody knows defensively he's a master at defense. He was a master at technique when he played. I used to
smart.
Yeah, I mean, when I was coaching Little League and in the middle school, I made him watch film on the guy. He played the best technique of any linebacker I've ever seen to this day.
Well, it's so funny because after his career ended, 10 years, 6 years with the Texans, 4 with the Eagles, came back to Houston, didn't know what he wanted. And so I can't remember exactly how he ended up back at Bessemer, but he did and helped him coach. And so that one season in 16. And then he went back to Houston, and he gets a call from Robert Saleh. He had spent 5 of his 6 years here with Robert. And Robert, who had been hired by Kyle Shanahan, said, "What are you up to?" And he said, "Well, I'm working out every day trying to see what I'm going to do. Am I retired? I might have an interest in coaching." He said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." So Saleh talked to him, and I wrote a column last week. D'Amico wouldn't be coaching in that game against the Jets if not for Robert Saleh. So Robert and then Johnny Holland, who had been hired by Kyle Shanahan, who had been D'Amico's coach here, he called him, and he and Saleh put the hard sell on him. Said, "Now, if you're interested, do you realize all the long hours you're going to spend and all that?" And he said he did. So they turned it over to Shanahan, and Kyle hired him for defensive quality control. And the other defensive quality control was Bobby Slowick, whose dad was a longtime defensive coordinator in the NFL for 4 teams. And Bobby and D'Amico became best friends. And after 2 years, when D'Amico was elevated to linebackers, Shanahan moved Slowick to offense. And then Slowick's like the boy wonder. He's 35 and he looks 25. And he and D'Amico were joined at the hip. And they had a pact they won't admit to, that the one that got a head coaching job first would take the other one. So D'Amico got it. Slowick came as a coordinator. And 1 more year here, Slowick's going to be a head coach. And so when they came, and D'Amico had his first news conference, they brought in former players, current players, And man, oh man, the former players walked out, and we were all in this huge auditorium, and they were ready to put on the pads and go hit somebody. So were the current players. And I asked D'Amico, I said, how come you weren't this good when you played? I mean, he was good, but he didn't inspire people to run out and hit people. He said, well, I've learned a lot and I'm in a different position. So he has inspired people. He hired good coaches. He calls the defense. Slowick calls the offense. And I'll give you an example. And this is a column I'm writing for today, for tomorrow, for sportsradio610.com, which is free. There's no paywall.
Yes, sir.
Last year, the Texans were the worst run defense in the NFL. They gave up 150 yards a game and 5.2 yards a carry. They have been the worst team against the run going back the last four seasons. And the last time they were good against the run was 2018. Well, without making a lot of changes in personnel, they are this year, they've gone from 100, they gave up 170 yards a game rushing last year. Right now, they're 8th in the NFL, giving up 95.6. Their 3.6 a carry is number 2. And I'm doing a study here that in the last 8 games, they've given up 85.1 and 3.3. And if I take out what Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson ran against them when they beat both those teams, they're giving up 73.2. If I just stick to the backs, 73.2 yards a game over the last 8 and 3 yards a carry. And I say that because in his last 5 games against the Texans, Derrick Henry, another guy you guys know well, has averaged 203 yards rushing and 7.1 a carry in his last 5 games. And last year they were popping champagne corks because they held him to 126 after 211, 212, 250, and 219. So can this run defense of D'Amico's finally keep Henry from gaining 100 yards for the first time since the first time they played in 2019? So he has done a tremendous job of coaching. The ends set the edge. The tackles know how to reestablish up front. And he has them playing hard, and he has them playing smart. When they get beat, it's because they just get beat. They don't make a lot of dumb mistakes. He's got them very sharp. And when they got beat for the Jets the other day, he was so angry. Nothing makes D'Amico angrier when he has to burn a timeout because too many are on special teams, or because Stroud will take too much time and they have to burn a timeout because, he's really smart. I tell you, you talk about how smart he is. I can't tell one time when they had a clock management issue or a game management issue. That is miraculous for a first-year head coach. And we've had issues here with coaches with Lovie Smith, David Culley, even Bill O'Brien. Used to drive him crazy when we'd ask him about his clock management issues, throwing the flag at the wrong time, not challenging at the right time. But D'Amico, I think so much he inspires, and he's smart. And this is his first season. I thought maybe next year, when they add some more free agents and have another round of draft choices, that he would be able to make this team capable of winning 7 or 8 games. But, man, right now it's very easy. They could have a winning record. It's too bad Stroud's out because they play at the Titans, host the Browns, host the Titans, and play at the Colts. Hopefully Stroud won't be out more than 1 week.
He's such a good guy, too, that it's hard not to pull for the cat. I mean, he's just a class guy. But I'm shocked that he's been able to do it as fast as he's been able to do it.
Everybody's shocked about it, Wes. My goodness. I'll tell you something else. Since there's so many Alabama guys here, Wes is not the only smart one they ever put out over there. Will Anderson Jr. Last year, I was on the head table at the Lombardi banquet here, and Will won it. And after it was over, he was such a class act. Everybody here loved Will Anderson. And they thought, oh, my goodness, Too bad the Texans need a quarterback so bad that Will Anderson would be great here. And so I remember grabbing him on the stage to interview him, not about him. I knew there was no way he was coming here. They need a quarterback. So I interviewed him about Bryce Young because I figured there's a good chance they might have a chance to get Bryce Young. And this was in December. And then in the last game of the year, they win in Indy. Everybody's infuriated because they beat Indy, then they didn't have the first pick in the draft. They lost Bryce Young, got stuck with C.J. Stroud, and Nick Caserio made a great trade to go up to the third overall pick and took Will. And Will was fantastic. He came back to Lombardi Banquet this year and presented the 50th anniversary to Liaku Letu, a defensive end from UCLA, who will be a high first-round pick. And so Will has just captivated the city. And when he was introduced before this crowd of about 1,000, they gave him a standing ovation. And it wasn't just because he was the defending winner of the Lombardi Award. It's because of what he's done with the Texans. Christian Harris is playing well at linebacker. They've gotten a lot of mileage out of Alabama. Everybody talks about the Georgia connection to Philadelphia. Well, there's an Alabama connection here.
There's actually an Alabama connection in Philadelphia, too. There's like 5 from Alabama on there, including Blankenship, who's played at Middle Tennessee, but is from Athens, Alabama.
Yeah,
right
he went
here.
to West Limestone.
Yep.
There's quite a bit. Well, John, as far as the Houston Texans now, they certainly have overachieved this year. But it sounds like you talked about you touched on free agency, you touched on the draft. How are they set up for this coming draft and in the future? It looks like it would be bright with how quickly they've turned this thing around and the way they drafted this past year.
When they traded 3 picks, 1, 2, and a 3, to move up and get the pick for Will, I remember a lot of national media, oh my God, they mortgaged their future. I remember one guy wrote, and I know him, so I'm not identifying him to protect the ignorant. He just ripped Nick Caserio like crazy. And he didn't point out they still have Cleveland's number 1 and Cleveland's 4 because it didn't fit the agenda. So, yeah, they traded their pick. Everybody thought it was going to be number 2. Arizona was going to go into this next draft with the first and second picks, and they're going to take Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr., and it'd be the greatest rebuilding job in history. Well, that pick's not going to be so high, and I think it'd be very interesting. The Browns keep winning with 4 different quarterbacks, and the Texans play them here next week. If the Texans could win that game, they might end up with a better pick from Cleveland than Arizona gets from Houston. And so they still have draft choices. They're projected to have around $90 million in cap space. And one of Nick Caserio, when he was handed the task by the McNair family, start over, rebuild. They don't use that word, but we do because that's what it was. Like in this game, they played the Titans in late December last year in Nashville. They beat them, and they had 3 players in this on offense, 1 backup quarterback, Davis Mills, who are going to start in this game, and they had 3 on defense. Only 6 out of 22. It would be 5 if Stroud didn't have a concussion. And so that's how much turnover they've undergone since last year. So they need help. They need players at a lot of positions. They can't run the ball. Every year they bring in a new line coach. They have new linemen. They still can't run the ball. D'Amico has got to do something in the offseason to make sure they can't make the kind of improvement in the running game as they've made in the run defense. They're set at quarterback. John Mechie, he is. I didn't expect anything from him considering he had cancer and memory blew out his knee in SEC championship game. He's been back all year. But that rookie, this to me, it's like his rookie year. It's next year that I think we'll see the fruits of the labor of trading up into the second round to get Mechie. And but they need another dynamic receiver. He can run like crazy because Stroud is just so good. That's another thing. We're just blown away at how good C.J. Stroud has been. Hate to see him hurt. Hope it's only 1 game, but They're set, but they still need more pieces. In this draft right now, Tank Dell, third-round pick, great receiver. He went down 2 weeks ago for the season with a fractured fibula, and then having, my goodness, Stroud and Anderson. And Stroud's running away with Offensive Rookie of the Year, and Will is right there with Jalen Carter. The Eagles, who's not playing so well right now, he could overtake him, but they had a great draft, and that bodes well for another one next year since D'Amico is working closely with Nick Caserio, who has final say on everything, but those guys get along great.
Well, and I know you talked about Derrick Henry being the scourge of the Texans. Could they try to bring him to Houston next year? He's a free agent. You said they need to improve the running game. I know he's got some tread on the tires, but he's been remarkably durable. Could he be the guy that could solve the issues for this running game, along with maybe upgrading the O-line?
No, I don't see it. Derrick is going to turn 30 in January.
I
hope he stays there. I hope he's the Titans. You know, he's not going to get offered a lot of money at his age. Now, one thing people, and NFL people will pay attention to this. You know, Derrick didn't do squat for a while. His first year, like his first 2 games against the Texans, 9 yards, 65 yards. His second year, one game he had 7 yards, 56, 30. And it wasn't till really 2018 and 19 that he started to carry the ball a lot. And 19, he had 1,540. And he missed half a year in 2021, and he still had 937. So he's had 4 full seasons of taking a beating. And that's not a lot for a guy. He's dished it out as he's got it. So I think the Titans will know that. He's Mike Vrabel's type player. He just tied with Danian Tomlinson and Adrian Peterson as the only backs in history to rush for at least 10 touchdowns in 6 consecutive seasons. He has 6 in the last 3 games. Probably have 5 or 6 against the Texans based on the way he has beaten and battered them over his career. So it's not like he hit the ground running and started taking a beating right away. So I'm not saying he's a young 29 going on 30, but he's a lot better off than some backs who are 30. You know, Raheem Mostert of the Dolphins is 32 years old. I think he has 18 touchdowns. He's still the first or second fastest running back in the NFL. So if he can do it at 32, why couldn't Henry do it at 30, 31, and 32?
Well, great stuff as always from the great John McClain. And again, as John said, you can read and hear him at sportsradio610.com, and it's free. He does 5 columns per week and 3 daily podcasts. There is not a smarter football mind in history than John McClain, the great Hall of Famer. Sir, it's always great to talk football with you. We appreciate your time, and thank you for joining Wes and I this evening to talk a little Houston Texans.
Drew and Wes, it's my pleasure. Merry Christmas, happy holidays to you and your listeners, and I hope Steve is back in the saddle as soon as he can be.
Yes, sir. We certainly hope that. Merry Christmas to you and your family as well. And
thank you.
We know Steve will be fine soon. Thank you to John McClain. We're going to go on a
John.
break. When we come back, we're going to take your calls, 256-576-4977 here on.
Log on today, 977ESPN.com. You're listening to The Drive with Wes Neighbors and Steve Moulton on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
It's time to ring in the new year right.
Bama, a winner over the Georgia Bulldogs, claiming the SEC title.
It's the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Michigan Wolverines in the college football playoff semifinal at the Rose Bowl. Our coverage starts at 1 on New Year's Day on your home for Alabama football.
Listen to Alabama football all season long on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
These days, saving time is important, and saving money is even more so. That's where Eagle Masonry and Insulation comes in. Over the years, Eagle has expanded their services to meet the needs of folks like you in our area. If you need masonry, brick, stone, or block work, Eagle should be your first call. They can even help if your property needs grading, erosion control, and Eagle can handle dirt haul-off. Call Eagle Masonry and Insulation today at 256-755-1556. Eagle saves you time, and Eagle saves you money.
You've got to experience Toyotathon at Bill Penny Toyota. They've got the selection with over 700 new Toyotas to choose from. And they've got the extras with Bill Penny perks and a 10-year unlimited warranty. So get on over to Bill Penny Toyota today and experience Toyotathon. Bill Penny Toyota in Huntsville and online at BillPennyToyota.com. Bill Penny's Toyota 10-year unlimited warranty is valid through the 10th year of ownership. Valid on new vehicles only. See dealer for details.
For 50 years, our mission, do the right thing and make long-term decisions. We value our customers, and we invest in supporting you. We use our own technologies to automate, to provide you the best support possible. And we have the strongest guarantees in the industry. I just can't tell you I'm going to provide you great support. I have to prove it to you with my actions.
From heirloom diamonds to contemporary jewels, Loring & Company is the place to find something truly special. Whether shopping for a diamond ring for that once-in-a-lifetime occasion or marking a milestone birthday or personal achievement with a Rolex watch, you'll find just the thing in our edit of the world's most sought-after brands, including David Yurman, Roberto Coin, Marco Bicego, and Fopé. Expect a treasure trove of the world's most unique, even breathtaking earrings, rings, necklaces, and bracelets, making choosing just one piece a challenge in itself. Loring & Company Jewelers on Airport Road. Ann Adams with Berkshire Hathaway Rise Real Estate is the one name to know if you're buying or selling real estate. With years of local experience, Ann Adams offers buyers in-depth knowledge of the local housing market and will narrow available properties down to those you'll be interested in so you can save time when shopping for your new home. If you're ready to sell, Ann offers a seamless process using accurate pricing and expert negotiation skills to make sure you get a fair price for your home. Call Ann Adams today at 256-337-2625 or log on bhhsriserealestate.com.
I'm with Thomas here from Talent Heating and Air. Thomas, you guys are a premier North Alabama locally owned heating and air company.
We pride ourselves in being deep in the community, helping customers with solutions that they can use to keep their house comfortable. We provide emergency services. You can reach us on our website at talenthvac.com, or you can call us at 256-503-4490.
Talent Heating and Air, let them put their talent to work for you.
AL cert number 21014.
Isn't the story of the prodigal son an amazing story? Basically, a rowdy boy who literally wished his father dead ran away and consumed his wealth with hard and fast living. Yet the father looked for his return every day, and when the boy got tired of eating pig slop, he decided to return. What did the father do? As soon as he saw that boy, he ran to him, threw his arms around him, and killed the fatted calf for a great celebration. Hey, I'm John Dees, pastor of the Cross Point Church. If you're looking for a church home, come see us, smack dab across the street from the YMCA in Madison.
This will turn journalism on its ear.
Watch our stream on WZZN TV on Twitch and YouTube.
But you are the greatest hero in American history.
We are 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
It's always great to have John McClain on the show with us to talk D'Amico Ryans and the Houston Texans. And, I can still remember when D'Amico was a quote-unquote late bloomer, Wes, but it's Bessemer City now, but it was Jess Lanier back in those days. And he was a 3-star linebacker who was about to go to Mississippi State until Dennis Franchioni's staff snagged D'Amico Ryans. And I've said this repeatedly. He's one of the greatest players I've ever seen play at Alabama. If he had played for Nick Saban, he would have been a top 10 type draft pick like he should have been, and he'd probably be remembered even more fondly, but he still should be anyway. He's endowed a scholarship at Alabama. You talked about how smart he was, how you used his technique.
His technique was unbelievable.
Yeah.
He was a smart player too, but his technique was just – I mean, the whole key to playing defense is to stay square to the ball, not get your shoulders turned, and to almost slide. You see these when Jihad Campbell made that play, he ran around and then slid square and made the tackle. That was perfect technique. That's why people that do that do not miss tackles, because they're square to the ball, and it's hard for anybody to make a move if you're square on you, and you're not leaning one way or the other. And D'Amico Ryans was unbelievable. I'm pretty sure D'Amico played on the team that beat Tennessee 6-3.
Yes, he did.
You look at the players on that defense that year, and Alabama was, they played Texas Tech and beat them 13-10, and with the Pirate over there. I mean, you look
after
at
Lou Holt said they give up 70.
Yeah, and it was 6-3 against Tennessee. You look, they won 10 games that year because of D'Amico Ryans and that defense. And you go back and look at all the guys on that defense, it's very impressive. And I'm going to Google it here in a minute and go over the guys that played
Mark
defense.
Anderson was another one.
Yeah.
He was a late bloomer, another one out of Tulsa, Oklahoma they thought would be a tight end.
The defensive back that made the big play,
Roman Harper. You've talked to Roman on this show.
Yes.
From Prattville. His only other offer was from Troy.
Yeah.
I think Mark Anderson's was Tulsa. I mean, and these are guys that played a long time in the NFL.
Yeah,
we're talking about 10 years. Well, I always say when you get to 8, 9, 10 years, like your dad played what, 8, 9, 10?
He played 8.
Okay. Yeah. When you start getting to that many, then that shows how good a player you are, because it's so hard to stay in the league.
Well, it is, and so every year, my dad always said 8 was perfect because he never had any surgeries and all that, and of course his roommate for 8 years was Nick Bonacani, and he played another 7 years, and he just passed away. And Nick was a class guy now, but he had both knees replaced, both shoulders replaced, and both hips replaced. It's just the toll that takes on you in the NFL is great, no question.
Yeah, it really does. There's no doubt about it. It's almost like just a battle of attrition. You have to, and our great friend Jerry Glanville, what did he coined the term "not for long"?
Yeah, question.
In that great NFL Films clip. When he was like getting on to the officials about a call, and he was like, well, you know what the NFL stands for, not for long. When you're making bleeping calls like that, none of us will be here. But no doubt. And while we were on the phone with John McClain, Wes, and I know you kind of read off the Florida schedule. They had the schedule reveal for the SEC for the rest of the games, because remember they announced the opponents, but they hadn't announced every date going forward, and they did for the University of Alabama. And next year, as you know, with it expanding to 16 teams, they're going to have 2 byes within the schedule. Alabama is going to open the season on August the 31st at home against Western Kentucky. And Western Kentucky is a good group of 5 programs. So Alabama will be favored by 3 touchdowns or more, but that's still not going to be easy. They'll get the return game from South Florida in week 2. The Bulls, who, by the way, made a bowl game. They weren't as horrendous as people thought they were going to be when they played Alabama this year.
They're better in Florida.
Yeah, that's a good point. When we were talking to Mark McLeod, and then of course week 3 they're going to Camp Randall to Wisconsin, and who knows, Wes? We may get the truckster up at the station and go there because Brandon's already rented a house. I know that's usually your department, but he's already been planning this trip, and I think he wants the station to go on out there. Then they get their first bye, and they get a bye week before Georgia. Georgia has been announced as September the 28th in Tuscaloosa. So Alabama will have their first road game at Wisconsin on the 14th, get a bye, and then face Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs on September the 28th. Then the Vanderbilt Commodores in Nashville, which will be like an Alabama home game. That will be on October the 5th. and then they face South Carolina, and that will be at Bryant-Denny Stadium. And then, of course, the rematch at Tennessee on October 19th. And then another one of the games that was announced today, besides Vanderbilt and South Carolina being announced on the 5th and the 12th, is Missouri. The Missouri Tigers, who are going to be coming off of a Big Six Bowl, they will be coming to Bryant-Denny Stadium on October the 26th. Then you'll see the second bye week before they return to Baton Rouge and take on the LSU Tigers to kick off November the 9th. And then they have Mercer come to town November the 16th. And here it is. No cupcake before Auburn this year, West Neighbors, as they will be at Oklahoma on November the 23rd before the Auburn Tigers come to Bryant-Denny Stadium on November the 30th.
No, who does Auburn play the week before?
That's a great question. We need to check out Auburn's schedule. I'll bring that up on X here because everybody's remaining dates was announced today, and so we'll see. I think Auburn's is also is much more difficult. Both of them used to either have a bye week or play someone that basically was not considered a heavyweight. But Auburn will actually play Texas A&M before taking on Alabama and Tuscaloosa. So on November the 23rd, the Auburn Tigers in 2024 will be taking on Texas A&M, and that will be inside Jordan-Hare Stadium. As they will take, and the week before that they will have ULM. But Auburn's schedule is interesting because they open on the Plains against Alabama A&M on August 31st. So we will have a local angle there, Alabama A&M. Week 2 they will have the return game in Jordan-Hare against Cal Berkeley from, I guess I can't even remember what conference they're going to. I mean, I think it's I think Cal's going to be in the Big 12, but I can't even remember. It's so confusing now. But Cal Berkeley will be coming. The New Mexico Lobos will be the third week, and then they get to play Oklahoma in week 4, but it's in September. But that will be in Jordan-Hare Stadium for them. And then Auburn will have the Georgia Bulldogs on October the 5th, and then they'll have their first bye before they take on Missouri. And then the Kentucky Wildcats. After on the October the 19th, they go on the road to Missouri. They go on the road to Lexington, Kentucky. And then, interestingly enough, they take on Villanova, as Villanova will be coming to Jordan-Hare Stadium on November the 2nd. And then they get a bye week before they play the threesome of ULM, Texas A&M, and as we said, Alabama and Tuscaloosa to end that season, West. So interesting for Alabama and Auburn how the SEC schedules shape up. Alabama's got a brutal schedule. I mean, because I think Luke Fickell's team will be a lot better at Wisconsin, so that'll be a big test for Alabama on the road in week 3. They're going to have Tyler Van Dyke. We talked about that on the show yesterday. Tyler Van Dyke went into the transfer portal from Miami. He's already committed to Wisconsin. And Luke Fickell, I think, is a heck of a coach. We know they played Alabama when he was at Cincinnati in the college football playoff. He got Cincinnati to the playoff, and that kind of led to him getting this Wisconsin job and doing a great job there. So, again, just a tough schedule for Alabama. Don't have to play Texas this year. You don't see the Longhorns.
No.
But both Alabama, and neither does Auburn.
What teams play both Texas and Oklahoma next year? But Alabama doesn't play Ole Miss or Mississippi State.
For the first time in many, many years, yeah. Neither one of them are on the schedule because I had to remind myself of that because when Ole Miss announced that all those guys were coming back, Jackson Dart, Quinshawn Judkins, Trey Harris, they're going to have a good team. And as of right now, Wesley Neighbors, the safeties coach, I say as of right now because we'll see what happens after the bowl games and everything like that, but he's done a great job. I was thinking, well, we'll see what happens with Alabama and Ole Miss. Then I started thinking to myself, I don't think they play. So that's what's going to be really, really, really strange when you see longtime rivals like that you've played every year.
Forever.
Yeah.
So I remember Lane Kiffin said that's probably the last time that I'll ever face Nick Saban.
Yeah.
He said that, and the reason he said that is because Ole Miss is not playing Alabama anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And most people thought that, he must know something that Nick's going to retire, but it's because that
well, it's kind of because it's the same thing with this Ryan Williams situation who reclassified. He was added to the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star roster, Wes, yesterday, and is already in Hattiesburg to play in the game. and he had told the media after he announced his reclassification he was going to visit Alabama this weekend, and now they're making a big deal. Oh, he's canceled the visit. He's going to be at the Auburn, USC basketball game on Sunday. Well, that's because he's going to spend the majority of the week in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. That's the reason he canceled it. He's playing for his state in the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game. They cleared him to do that. So hopefully he'll help Alabama continue to dominate that series. They have for the majority of it. We'll see. Now, there's some guys, some key targets like Cam Coleman, who's a stud, Perry Uno Thompson. They're both committed to Auburn. They're not playing in it, but they are guys like Malcolm Simmons, who's a really good player, Malik Blockton, whose brother Marcus Harris just went pro for Auburn. I guess that means Marcus is not going to play, I'm assuming, in the Music City Bowl for Auburn. But again, he had 3 really good years after transferring from Kansas. He's another one that played at Park Crossing from Montgomery. So really good overachieving career. I thought he got better every year at Auburn. He was one of the stalwarts along their defensive line, and so he's going to move on and have a chance to play in the National Football League. And his brother Malik Blockton will follow in his footsteps, no doubt about it. So very excited for that, and really looking forward to it, no question about it. And then I know we just read it, but I know you were asking, Wes. Here's the Tennessee schedule, by the way, that has been released now in full. They will open with UT Chattanooga, then an interesting neutral site game. The Vols taking on NC State and Charlotte, North Carolina. The Fighting Nick Sabans, Kent State Golden Flashes, they will travel to Knoxville to take them on. Now, I will say this. I know you were asking. Once again, Texas will not play Tennessee, so the real UT will not play the fake one. And so Kent State at Oklahoma, though, in week 4 for Tennessee. That will be their first huge test on the road at OU. They get an open date, then they're at Florida on October the 5th, or excuse me, at Arkansas, on October the 5th, because the next week they have a run of 2 straight home games. Florida will be in Knoxville on October the 12th, Alabama on October the 19th, then their second open date before they finish the season with a 5-game stretch of Kentucky in Knoxville, Mississippi State in Knoxville, at Georgia on November the 16th. Then the UTEP will come to town on November the 23rd, and then they will finish in Nashville at Vanderbilt. So a pretty difficult schedule, but one that's manageable for Tennessee. So we appreciate Steve Moulton for sending us the Vols schedule as well, as their schedule was revealed also. So it's going to be a very interesting time in the Southeastern Conference because, again, it's a new day, new league. And I'm going to be interested to see how Texas and OU do because both of them had good years this year. Texas had a great year, more apt though, even though Oklahoma beat them. Oklahoma had a couple of hiccups against Oklahoma State. Did not play well, lost the Bedlam game, and nearly lost to Central Florida. And then did lose to Kansas. That was their other loss. But still, a much better year 2 for Brent Venables because there was a lot of questions about year 1 and how it went. And now he's going to have a new quarterback in Jackson Arnold, who was a 5-star West, who redshirted. He was sitting behind Dylan Gabriel. We know Dylan Gabriel has now gone to the transfer portal to follow under Bo Nix's footsteps at Oregon for Dan Lanning. So that's going to be a very interesting thought as well. And then we had some breaking news while we were talking to John McClain. Kyle McCord, he thought he might end up at Nebraska, even though Dylan Raiola looks like he's going to as well. Kyle McCord visits Nebraska. He decides, probably read the tea leaves with Dylan Raiola, decides he does not want to go to Nebraska. Now, of all places, Syracuse being mentioned as maybe a landing spot for Kyle McCord.
So wasn't Dylan Raiola originally going to Georgia?
Yes, he was. Absolutely. He was considered, along with Julian Sand, who's committed to Alabama, the top 2 quarterbacks in the country. He relocated from the Phoenix area to Buford, Georgia, and had been thought to be rock solid the entire time, but now miraculously his uncle gets a 53% pay raise to be the offensive line coach at Nebraska, to stay there. His father is a former All-American center. Dominic Raiola at Nebraska. Looks like he's going to follow in the footsteps of said family lineage. Probably, though, they may try to start him as a true freshman. It was bad this year at Nebraska at the quarterback position. Matt Rule knows that. I personally have heard from enough people, though, that Raiola is kind of overrated, but we'll see. But I know we need to go on a break and come back and have our final segment of the drive. Stay with us here on 97.7 The Zone. We'll take your calls, 256-5.
You're listening to The Drive with Wes Neighbors and Steve Moulton on 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Sign up now for the 97.7 ESPN The Zone Bowl Challenge. Just go to ESPN.com. Click on Capital One Bowl Mania.
He must be the most ambitious man in the world.
And join the 97.7 ESPN Bowl Challenge group. First place will win an overnight stay at Guntersville State Park, plus dinner in the Pinecrest Room, plus golf at Gunter's Landing. Second place wins a foursome at Cherokee Ridge. And third wins food at Bubby's Diner, Bad Daddy's Burger Bar, and Coralejos Mexican Grill. Find the link to sign up at our 97.7 ESPN Facebook page and on X at 97.7 ESPN.
You keep saying that, but you don't tell me how.
Sign up now for the 97.7 ESPN The Zone Bowl Challenge. Just go to ESPN.com, click on Capital One Bowl Mania, and join the 97.7 ESPN Bowl Challenge group. Join today, and good luck.
This kind of stuff makes you grow up quick.
Hey folks, this is Arthur Seaton, managing partner at University Kia, proudly saying Roll Tide and War Eagle. Stop into University Kia today and shop one of the area's largest selection of new Kias, including Fortes, Seltos, Telluride, and Popular Carnival, and fully electric EV6. View all the great specials at universitykia.com and get pre-approved in minutes so you can drive home your new Kia you really want, because we want to see you in a University Kia.
SportsMed is the official team physicians of the Rocket City Trash Pandas. And if the pros trust SportsMed, you can too. SportsMed provides every service you might need for complete orthopedic care, specializing in orthopedic surgery, sports medicine, joint replacement, spine surgery, neurosurgery, and podiatry. And they offer their own brace shop, in-house full-body MRI, physical therapy, walk-in clinic, and so much more. 4 locations and on the web at sportsmedalabama.com.
The kitchen is the heart of any home. It's where the family gathers. It's where kids discover old recipes and make them their own. Just starting out or just now getting started on the dream kitchen you've always wanted?
I'm Chris Haygood, and from all of us here at Bob Wallace Appliance to the home builders and the homeowners of the Huntsville area, a heartfelt thank you for buying local. We're in Huntsville, Florence, and Coleman, and online at bobwallaceappliance.com.
Chapman Commercial Realty, your source for Alabama commercial real estate. Chapman Commercial Realty has the experience and expertise you're looking for when making commercial real estate decisions. If it's office space, retail space, investment property, or project development, Chapman Commercial Realty is your answer. Call Bill Chapman today at 256-656-8413. That's 256-656-8413. Or find them online at chapmancommercialrealty.com.
Tom Abraham here for my friends at North Alabama Mortgage. Did you know that average home equity is at an all-time high? But so is average consumer debt. Even though rates are higher now, you can use your equity to pay off your high consumer debt, student loans, etc., then refi when the rates drop. Don't put off that new home purchase. When rates drop, prices will go up. Buy now and get the best price and then refi when the rates drop. This is the time to talk to the experts at North Alabama Mortgage. Visit NorthAlabamaMortgage.com for more information.
Coming up on Wednesday is our annual Christmas party at Flow Supreme Air Sports, presented by Eagle Insulation and Masonry, plus Talent Heating and Air, with food provided by Bubby's Diner. So come on by and bring a toy as we collect toys for the Boys and Girls Club of North Alabama. So bring a toy and join in the fun at Flow on Wednesday. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas from 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
From the Fox 54 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Emily Owen. For this Wednesday, expect a mostly sunny sky. High temperatures will be a little warmer heading into the afternoon. It looks like we'll top out in the upper 50s. Heading into your Wednesday night, we'll start the night off mostly cloudy, gradually becoming mostly clear. Low temperatures expected to fall into the mid and upper 30s for the overnight. I'm Fox 54 meteorologist Emily Owen on your home for ESPN Radio 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
You know, this process is all about talking ball.
Listen to Talkin' Ball with Scott Tyson and Drew DeArmond.
What did they want privacy for? To just start talking ball.
Every weekday morning, wake up with Scott and Drew. It's Talkin' Ball. 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch. You really are a heel. You're as cuddly as a cactus. You're as charming as an eel, Mr. Grinch. You're a bad banana with a greasy black peel.
That is such an underrated song, especially the original version. I mean, it really is.
Mr. Grinch, your heart's an empty.
Yeah, it really is, man. It's just a totally underrated song. I mean, who hasn't watched that, throughout their childhood? But we wish everyone a Merry Christmas. We wish John McClain. I've been for Steve Moulton the last couple of days myself, no doubt about it. And we've also caught it with Mark McLeod. We've talked Gators. The last hour of the show here, but after the John McClain conversation, we've been talking about the SEC schedule reveal, and Alabama's schedule is as difficult as anyone's. Wes and I were just talking about that off the air. I mean, when you have to, play Wisconsin on the road week 3, and then, the last 2 games, you're at Oklahoma, and then you play Auburn and Tuscaloosa, that doesn't get much tougher. Even though I will say our good friend Steve Moulton, who is recovering and under the weather, he did send us Oklahoma's schedule, and it is very difficult at the end as well. They open on August 31st with Temple. Then they host Houston, and they host John Summerall now in the Tulane Green Wave. Their first 4 games are all at home. Tennessee will travel to Norman, Oklahoma. Then they go to Auburn, have their first open date, and then Texas in Dallas, as we know, at the State Fair, the Red River Shootout. South Carolina back in Norman, Oklahoma, at Ole Miss, the Maine Black Bears, and at Missouri. Then they have an open date before that gauntlet to end the season. Alabama in Norman and at LSU. So a pretty difficult schedule for Oklahoma as well. So
what's different in the schedule for everybody,
right,
is that the Iron Bowl will not be played on Thanksgiving.
Not anymore. We talked about November the 30th.
Yeah, it'll be November 30th, and then that moves the SEC championship game back a week.
Mm-hmm.
So the SEC championship game would have been last weekend, which makes it so Alabama will be playing Oklahoma at Oklahoma at Thanksgiving next year. Thanksgiving
around
weekend.
that weekend that you usually it's the Iron Bowl weekend, has been for many, many years, but it's not going to be this time, as Alabama will be traveling to Norman. The last time Alabama went to Norman, Oklahoma, I believe, Wes, was 2002.
Yeah,
and
I went.
You did?
Oh yeah, I'll never forget Big C. Who's vertically challenged, as we all know.
Oh yeah, love Big C.
Yeah, he shows up. This is 4-9. No, so I guess it was right after 9/11.
Yeah, 9/11 was in 01, right? And the 02, it was the year after. The 02, the trip to Norman was the year after.
He showed up. He had his old Alabama shorts on with cowboy boots, and he had a Alabama hat, like one of those the big ones that they make with styrofoam. He had a huge one on, and he had the little toy guns on. When he walked in the stadium. I'll never forget it. I laughed so hard. The best thing he ever did, though, is he had on a shirt that said, at the Auburn game, says, "No, I'm not Terry Bowden."
Well, and we got to give one of our listeners, I got to give David Sendowski a shout out here, because hell, I couldn't remember what league Cal was going to. That's right. Cal and Stanford are going to the ACC of all places. Cal will not be in the Big 12. I just know the whole league disintegrated. And I do know that Oregon and Oregon State are going, or excuse me, not Oregon, Oregon State and Washington State are going to the Mountain West, and they're going to be the Pac-2 basically, but they're going to the Mountain West to compete in football. Probably end up a permanent move for them, but they got left behind. Oregon is going to the Big Ten. Washington is going to the Big Ten. We know that. So along with UCLA and USC. So that whole league is disintegrating. It's just kind of hard to keep it straight. But, yes, appreciate it, David. I know he listens quite a bit. We appreciate your help Cal is actually, if they did get invited to the ACC to play in the basketball league. I don't think it's going to improve their football all that much.
Man, what their travel schedule has to
Oh,
I mean, every trip they'll make will be 4 hours or more.
I know. It's crazy.
I mean, flying to Miami, think about that.
Yeah. I mean, and just think about their non-revenue sports.
Yeah, it'd be cheaper to fly over Mexico.
I mean, it really would.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
that's
insane.
Just nuts. Yeah, no doubt.
It's really crazy. But again, we appreciate John McClain for joining us and talking to Miko Ryan. There's nobody more well versed in professional football and the Houston Texans in their history and really in pro football history than John McClain. You heard him just. I mean, the memory he has, how sharp he is. And then I'm glad to hear, too, that they're really happy with Will Anderson. I still think he's going to be a great pro. He's made of the right stuff. I know he had his first 2-sack game a couple weeks ago, and I know he's going to be a great player. He is made of the same stuff to me as D'Amico is, the same kind of DNA, and I think that's why they made that trade, gave up the capital they gave up, because I think D'Amico really wanted Will Anderson. He wanted him to be a part of that defense and kind of build around him. You heard him talk about Christian Harris. I thought Christian Harris played the best game of his Alabama career in his last game in that national championship game.
He always played better at the end of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, he always had really good games against Auburn. The guy was one of the fastest guys on the team. The guy can really run, and those kind of athletes are, if you can stay healthy, play a long time.
Yeah, they really could. No
Big
doubt
guy
about
too.
It.
Yeah,
just absolutely. And then great to hear about Metch because he's overcome so much with the knee injury and then the cancer that scared everyone. But Metch is made of the right stuff too. He was just. I always called him very affectionately a dog when he was at Alabama. He just played with such physicality, and I always thought that he was underrated. He developed very nicely at Alabama. He didn't have maybe the recruiting profile of Devontae Smith coming in as a 5-star or a Jerry Jeudy or even a Henry Ruggs, but he was a great player in his own right and was a part of that 2020 offense. It's one of the best we've ever seen in college football. Then followed that up with a great final year. And people forget he actually left a year early. He left as a junior. But I still think he's going to have a really, really good pro career. But we really are looking forward to seeing Metch hopefully next year, as John said, coming to his own. But I know the show is about to wind down. Don't forget tonight, guys, as we're leaving here, my co-host Scott Tyson, he's going to be out there doing the PA out there at the Von Braun Center. It's going to be a sellout crowd. I know we've got some of our great sponsors over there as well, over watching the Auburn Tigers. For the first time since 2009, their basketball program has come back to the Rocket City for the Rocket City Classic. The Auburn Tigers tonight at 7 taking on the UNC Asheville squad that made the NCAA tournament last year. UNC Asheville's got a really good mid-major program. Auburn coming off of a rout of Indiana, and so they're in really solid shape. But we're really looking forward to seeing Auburn play. And they're 6-2 coming in. They've got 2 local guys: Chaney Johnson, former UAH star, Gulf South Conference Player of the Year last year, and Denver Jones, former Buckhorn Buck. And Auburn's been in town since yesterday. And go out and support these young men and see the Auburn Tigers hopefully get a big win over UNC Asheville. Tune in tomorrow. We're going to have more Talking Ball with Scott Tyson, myself, from 7 to 9 a.m. Everybody have a great rest of your evening, and we'll talk to you in the morning here on 97.7 The Zone.
WZZN, Union Grove, Huntsville, Alabama. 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.